Hello, everyone. Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. It is November 23rd, 2022, the day before Thanksgiving. Click on the subscribe button down here to subscribe to future episodes, and also that notification bell in the far upper right to be notified when they're released. Click on that button. You can also guarantee that you're going to have the best Thanksgiving and your early shopping for Christmas. You're going to find the best deals and the 50% of the price that you expect to pay for the merchandise you'll be looking for. It won't be out of stock. Click on that notification bell to get that result. I would like also to recommend that you get for Christmas Causes of the Civil War, which discusses not only why the South fought the Civil War, but also why the North fought the Civil War. This is seldom discussed as the second point. Why did the North fight the Civil War? Seldom discussed by academics, and generally when they do discuss it, they come up with phony explanations. But the real reason is they knew that disunion would be more economically harmful to their states than it would be to the southern states. The southern states had an export economy, therefore they didn't have to depend upon the markets in the north to be prosperous. They could sell their stuff to Europe. The converse was true in the North. They were very dependent upon the United States, the states themselves, to purchase the merchandise that was manufactured up at the North. Okay, this book, $22 at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all fine bookstores. You want an autograph copy? You should get one for Christmas. Email me, Phil, Phil _ Lee, Leigh at me.com. Okay, today I'm going to talk about, some of you may have noticed I had an article. I had a post a couple of days ago about this Washington Post article on VMI, but it made me so angry. I just felt I did not do a good job in that video. I deleted it. And I'm going to go and take another aim at it here by quoting at length James Bacon in Bacon's Rebellion blog, who has an article, WaPo hits all-time low on VMI coverage. I think that covers it pretty well. But let me go ahead and just get into his article here, and we'll just go through that. There's a new rule at the Washington Post. It's okay to insinuate that conservatives are racist for disagreeing with an authority figure who happens to be Black. No evidence of bias is required. The Democracy Dies in Darkness newspaper set a new low yesterday in an article published Monday, describing how conservative alumni of the Virginia Military Institute decry the implementation of diversity, equity, and inclusion by the Board of Visitors and the Superintendent, Cedric T. Wins. Now, reporter Ian Shapira never comes out directly and calls the dissident alumni racist, but he makes the implication unmistakable. His rhetorical devices are a case study in slimy journalism that stops just short of libel. Let's start with the headline, which may or may not be Shapira's composition, but accurately reflects the tone of the article. So here's the headline, quote, VMI's first Black superintendent under attack by conservative white alumni, close quote. See the trope? The superintendent is Black. The alumni are conservative and white. The headline doesn't say explicitly that the alumni are attacking the superintendent because he is Black, but the phrase invites readers to assume that there must be a link between the superintendent's race and the race of the alumni. Why else would race be injected into the headline, which by its nature is supposed to be sparing and economical with words? Shapira then leads the article with this. Ever since Virginia Military Institute began rolling out diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives last year, a fierce and well-funded group of conservative alumni has been attacking the efforts to make VMI more welcoming to women and minorities. Here he supplies a motive. Alumni are attacking, quote, efforts to make VMI more welcome to women and minorities. That's his motive. Now, the charitable word to describe this phrase is misleading. That's the charitable word. True, alumni are criticizing the DEI program, but they are not attacking it because they oppose making VMI more welcoming to Blacks and minorities. No, If they had ever expressed such a desire, Shapira certainly would have quoted them to that effect. But he hasn't, and therefore they haven't. Rather, dissident alumni are attacking the DEI program because they believe DEI encourages cadets to focus on their identity by race, sex, and gender, which is contrary to the egalitarian ratline regimental system, which tears down previous identities, basic training style, and remolds cadets as, quote, brother rats, close quote, and VMI citizen soldiers. Now, one might disagree with the dissidents' philosophy. One might disagree with their analysis of how DMI is being implemented at VMI. That's fine. But Shapira ignores the philosophical differences entirely and frames the issue as based on race. And that really makes Ian Shapira a demagogue. Just to clarify, the first name is Ian, last name is Shapira, ending with an A, not Shapiro, like Ben Shapiro. So, but do remember that name, Ian Shapira. I would like for you to keep it in mind because this is a young man who needs to be remembered for his deliberate attempts to misrepresent Southern points of view on anything relating to Southern culture, in my opinion. Now, he continues, Shapira. Now, the mostly white alumni group has turned its sights on a new target, the first Black superintendent at the nation's oldest state-supported military college. Again, Shapiro frames the controversy as a matter of race. I have interacted, this is James Bacon speaking, I have interacted with dissident alumni for some 2 years now, and I have never heard them allude to Wins as race other than in passing and never as a negative. Shapira is making Wins as race an issue. It is Shapira that is making Wins as race an issue. True, some alumni have criticized the board for giving Wins a $100,000 bonus. Others have called for him to be fired. Why? Because he is Black? No, because VMI has seen a 25% decline in its entering a freshman class, the first-year students. 25% decline. Now, reasonable people can disagree on why VMI saw such a decline and whether Wins bears any responsibility, but it is not gratuitous to suggest that the decline might have been due to some degree to the massive wave of negative publicity of VMI as a racist, sexist institution. And this view is perpetuated largely by Ian Shapira and the Washington Post. And the seeming validation of that assessment of the board and Wins through the implementation of DEI training and programs. Shapira then runs this quote from Chuck Rogerson, a retired white Army colonel who roomed with Wins when they were cadets. Quote, they can't handle the change because they've never had to deal with it before. A man of color leading the institute. Did they ever question the prior superintendent's salary? Here, the insinuation of racism becomes more explicit. Wins's critics can't handle the idea of a, quote, man of color, close quote, leading the institute. Now, Rogerson's putative evidence, here's his evidence. They never criticized prior superintendent salaries. True, they didn't. But that's because they regarded the previous superintendent with great respect. Not because he was white, but because they shared his values and priorities. As it happens, the dissident alumni disagree not only with Wins, who is Black, but with members of the VMI board, most of whom are, well, what race do you think most of the VMI board is composed of? Most of them are white, and the alumni dissidents disagree with them. Now, almost comically in this context, the journalist Ian Shapira quotes board chairman Tom Watkins, whom Shapira credits with overseeing the launch of the DEI program. And here's Watkins, the board chairman, quoting. This is what he's saying. Anytime people are attacking the superintendent, I'm going to be unhappy. He's the one that we're counting on for helping to bring us forward and protect the mission and purpose of the Institute to bring us to a new level, said Watkins. It's W-A-T-G-J-E-N, Watkins. And Watkins, of course, is white. Now, every time he gets attacked, meaning wins, Watkins is saying every time wins gets attacked, I, meaning Watkins, feel attacked, close quote. Now here, Watkins poses what? The great white savior. He sort of portrays himself as the great white savior. He doesn't need to feel attacked when wins gets attacked. No. Dissident alumni have criticized Watkins directly. White alumni criticizing a white man named Watkins directly. That's not race. It is grotesque to suggest that dissident alumni have singled out wins for criticism. Alumni have had plenty to say about the role of Watkins and the board in the governance of VMI. Plenty of negative comments I would add to say about them. Watkins is white. Most of the board is white. There's no racism there. There's no racial motive there. The motive is the differences of opinion regarding the validity of DEI and similar programs and the impact they will have on the Institute and its student body. Now, continuing with Bacon. The article continues in that vein. Alumni, says Shapira, have, quote, assailed, close quote, VMI's first chief diversity officer, Jamaica Love, quote, the college's highest ranking Black woman, close quote. Now you get that? Alumni have assailed her, a Black woman. Alumni have not assailed the DEI policy she's implementing. No, they've assailed her. No, but that's not true. They are assailing the policy she's implementing, but Ian Shapira makes it as though they are assailing her. Angry alumni, writes Shapira, have found a forum on WRVA's John Reed show. It's a radio station in Richmond. Shapira proceeds to quote not the alumni who appear on his show, but Reed himself, a conservative, a political conservative, but not a VMI alumnus, and to take issue with Reed's views on DEI. None of the alumni in question responded to Shapira's request for comments, which is understandable given his long-standing hostility to them. But he does quote Thomas Gottwald, a former board member who resigned during the Northam administration and was reappointed by Governor Glenn Youngkin, based upon a recording of the board meeting. Gottwald, Shapira reminds his readers, is white and donated $78,000 to Youngkin's campaign. Now here's Gottwald, who's come back on the Board of Visitors after he resigned when Ralph Northam was governor. He didn't like the policies that were being put in place. Now he's been put back on the board by Governor Youngkin. And here's what he says. He's addressing the Board of Visitors directly. It is not a small group of alumni who feel like their voice isn't being heard right now by you guys, meaning the board. It's a big group. To make broad generalizations about the alumni, meaning those who are dissonant, or about anyone being critical of what is going on, is just one further implication that alumni need to just shut up and get in line, according to what the administration wants and the Board of Visitors wants. That's the implication. And then he continues that dissenting opinions and different opinions are not encouraged or welcome here. That's what he says the board is messaging to alumni generally, and the administration is messaging. Now, Gottwald makes a valid point. That is a valid point. That is the way the dissident alumni feel. And this is from James Bacon, who has been interacting with them for 2 years. Now, one might argue that I'm misconstruing Shapira's article. This is Bacon speaking. That I am reading insinuations of racism into his work. So let me respond by noting that the article has generated some 4,400 comments at last count. And most of the commenters are reading it the same way I do. Here's some of the examples. Sounds like VMI is an incubator for white supremacy, says one. The spirit of VMI might as well be the spirit of the KKK. This is sickening, says another. I am so sick and tired of elderly white Southern racists clinging desperately to their white supremacy dreams, says another. There are genuine philosophical issues at stake. How is DMI going to be implemented at VMI? Is the emphasis on racial, sexual, and gender identity compatible or incompatible with the rat line? These are issues that Shapira could explore if he were genuine, and this is my opinion now, if he were genuinely an honest journalist. Now, returning now to Bacon. But to my recollection, he has never done so. Instead, he has cast alumni dissidents as reactionary white conservative. With this article, he has gone further by insinuating racist motives. Ironically, as much as the dissident alumni disagree with Wims, any negative feelings they bear for him pale in comparison to the animosity they feel for Shapira. Alumni accord Wims respect for his distinguished military service, and they had high hopes for him when he was first appointed. The person they detest more than any other is a smug, Princeton-educated heir of a wealthy Kentucky bourbon distillery conglomerate who uses the Washington Post to signal his superiority over his moral inferiors. The one they detest the most is Shapira himself. Well, now that completes James Bacon's remarks, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit here. During the period of prohibition, mostly in the 1920s, but it ended in, I think, 1933. 3/4 of the states had voted to an amendment to the Constitution that sharply limited it actually made illegal the recreational use of alcoholic beverages. That was considered to be a moral stance, that anyone that opposed it was immoral, according to at least 3/4 of the states and 2/3 of the votes in Congress. That was the opinion. Now, what that would mean is that if this Ian Shapira were around in the 1920s, he and his family would have been condemned for producing Kentucky bourbon and distributing it to the public. They would be condemned for creating alcoholics, for creating men who gave up their responsibilities, who became wife beaters. All of this sort of thing could have been leveled at Ian Shapira's family. I think Ian Shapira's family in Kentucky needs to be reminded of that, because he is what he's doing here is what Will Durant cautioned about. Will Durant, an historian, said, when we criticize others or belittle them, well, let's put it this way, criticizing others is a dishonest way of praising ourselves. There is no way that you can read articles by Shapira about VMI without realizing that his prime motive is to praise himself. Okay, that is my show for today. Y'all have a good Thanksgiving tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you next time.